I'm planning to elope because my parents are trying to pressure me into allowing my sister's boyfriend to propose to my sister at my own wedding. Growing up, everyone always talked about how terrible my younger sister Emily's childhood cancer must have been. And honestly, it was. I was only 12 when it started, and our lives became hospitals. Those long, sterile halls, that disinfectant smell, the hard, sticky plastic chairs. While my parents huddled with doctors behind closed doors, I'd be doing homework in waiting rooms, sometimes eating vending machine dinners because nobody knew how long we'd be there. I'd sleep in my clothes, just in case. Back then, in my naive, child's mind, I didn't truly grasp the severity. My parents did everything to shield me, so all I really knew was that Emily was sick, and everyone was scared. Years later, my mom admitted Emily almost died more than once. That was, without a doubt, their darkest time. When Emily finally beat cancer, it was a miracle. Doctors rejoiced, friends rallied, and our relatives hailed her as our little fighter, the miracle child. I agreed. I truly did. Sitting on her hospital bed at home, I remember telling her she was the bravest person I knew. But something shifted after that. Slowly at first, in small ways. Emily wanted toys, and suddenly, she got them. She defied rules, and she didn't have to explain herself. I remember a restaurant tantrum over an incorrect order. My mom comforted her, saying, "She's been through enough." Being the easy kid was my role, the understanding one, the one without issues. If I ever dared to complain about something unfair, my mom would look at me with a pained expression, like I'd just uttered something terrible. "Anna," she'd say, her voice dropping to that irrational, accusing tone, "your sister survived cancer." Every single argument, every complaint, ended with that sentence. And for a long time, I'd just shut up. How do you argue against that? As we aged, Emily became, for lack of a better word, a brat. By high school, she knew our parents would move mountains for her. Curfews didn't apply to her. Chores? Exempt. Forgot schoolwork? Oh, that was due to medical trauma. If she snapped at someone, she was just emotionally recovering. And me? When I got frustrated, I was always the jealous sister. "You should be proud of her," my mom would say. And I was proud, but living in a house where Emily could do no wrong? It was suffocating. This dynamic continued, quietly, into adulthood. We actually got along better as adults, funnily enough, once Emily calmed down a bit after college. We weren't exactly friends, but we could share a civil dinner. She stayed healthy, but she still expected to get her way. And my parents? They hadn't changed. Every family event still revolved around Emily, Emily's job, Emily's boyfriend, Emily's plans. I got used to it, made it easier on myself. For years, I truly convinced myself it didn't matter. Until my wedding. That's when everything exploded. Daniel and I had been together for almost 4 years. I was 32. He's incredible, the kind of man who truly listens when you speak, not just polite nodding, but he remembers details weeks later. He'll suggest a restaurant 3 months after I casually mentioned I liked it. Growing up in a house always focused on someone else, that was unusual. And so good. Our proposal wasn't some grand, viral spectacle. It was a random Saturday afternoon, walking along the lake near his grandparents' house, a peaceful spot where his family spends summers. We were at the end of their little wooden dock, feet dangling in the water, talking about nothing in particular, work, bills, vacation ideas. Then Daniel grew quiet. "You know I want to live with you, right?" he asked. I laughed. That sounds suspiciously like the beginning of a proposal. He smiled, pulled a tiny box from his jacket pocket, and said, "Good. No need for surprises." He opened it. A simple ring, no spectacle, absolutely my style. My brain wasn't quite ready, so I just stared at him for a moment before I said yes. No hidden photographers, no flash mob, no surprise violinist. Just the two of us on a quiet dock. It was perfect. That night, we called our families. Daniel's parents were over the moon. His grandparents immediately started planning a lake house party. When I told my parents, my mom shrieked so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "Wow! My daughter's getting married." Dad called later to congratulate us. Everything felt normal. A few weeks later, Daniel and I started wedding planning. We didn't have a massive budget. Rent, student loans, and just adulthood meant tens of thousands on a wedding wasn't happening. That wasn't us anyway. We wanted something small, casual. Daniel's grandparents' lakeside home was the obvious choice. A huge oak tree, the water view, the dock. Even his grandmother joked about cooking half the food. We tentatively made a guest list, maybe 30 people, stretching to 35. Close friends, a few cousins, our immediate family. No huge production. Just wine, sunset, and good company. I told my mom our plan during Sunday dinner. She looked at me like I'd just suggested getting married in a parking lot. 30 people, she said, aghast. I nodded. Yeah, just a tiny thing. Backyard ceremony, a meal afterward. Nothing crazy. She looked at my dad, then back at me. No, she said instantly. I blinked. What do you mean no? No, she repeated, you cannot have a backyard wedding with 30 people. That's not a wedding, Anna. That's a barbecue. Daniel, trying to lighten the mood, chimed in, we actually like the barbecue vibe. Mom didn't laugh. She relaxed, folded her arms. This is your wedding, she said, as if explaining something basic to a child. Your one wedding. The whole family should attend. I shrugged. We don't want a big party. She looked genuinely offended. A wedding isn't just about what you want, she snapped. It's about family. That should have been my first warning. I disagreed then. But my parents made a very tempting offer soon after. Your father and I will pay for the wedding, my mother announced. Daniel and I looked up. All of it? I asked. Yes, she said. A real venue, catering, the whole thing. Don't you worry about the money. Dad nodded. We want to do this for you, he added. Honestly, I hesitated. It bothered me. But Daniel squeezed my hand under the table. We said we'd consider it. We argued for days. We loved our small, lakeside plan. But my parents really wanted a bigger party. Eventually, I convinced myself it would make them happy. Maybe I was overthinking it. I called Mom to say yes. That was, without a doubt, the worst decision I made about my wedding. Because the moment we accepted their money, my wedding stopped being mine. Things moved fast. Too fast. Within a week, I was getting venue links, caterer options, and guest lists from my mom. Guest lists that had way more than 30 people. Daniel and I were eating dinner when she called. Anna. I found the perfect venue, she chirped. I put her on speaker. What kind of venue? It's a lakeside event hall, about 40 minutes from the city, she gushed. Huge gardens, an elegant reception area, professional staff. This is how a wedding should be. Daniel raised an eyebrow. What's the capacity? He asked. My mom paused. 200. Daniel almost choked on his drink. We don't even know 200 people, he gasped. Well, you don't have to invite that many, she said quickly, but we have the room. We stuck in my head. I tried to redirect. Mom, we wanted something small. Yes, I know, she replied, with that patient tone she used when someone was being unreasonable. But this is your wedding. Don't limit it. For weeks, these planning talks continued. They didn't feel like meetings. They felt like my mom was dictating. I'd get texts. I reserved a photographer. We can always cancel if you hate him. Or, I spoke to a florist about centerpieces. Or, your father and I added a few more relatives to the guest list. Whenever I tried to slow things down, my mom would say the same thing. Don't worry, Anna. Your father and I will handle it. At first, I thought she was just excited. Parents get swept up in weddings, right? Daniel, however, was skeptical. One night, we were on the couch, scrolling through the rapidly growing guest list on my laptop. Anna, he said gently, this list is already at 90 people. He stroked my forehead. I know. And half of them are your parents' friends. I know, I sighed. He looked at me, really looked at me. Do you even want this wedding? I reacted slowly. I don't know, I confessed. I felt guilty, you know? This was costing my parents a fortune. Most of my mom's conversations included, we just want you to have the best day. It felt ungrateful to push back when someone was offering to spend tens of thousands on your wedding. I kept telling myself it would be fine. The list would grow, the venue would get fancier, but eventually, I'd still marry Daniel. That's what mattered, right? I kept reminding myself. Then Daniel looked at me one afternoon and said something that should have stopped me cold. Do they seem to be planning your wedding or theirs? I shrugged. I think they're just excited. Daniel didn't argue. But he didn't look convinced either. That was probably the last moment before everything truly went wrong. Because a few weeks later, my mom called, asking me to come over for a quick conversation. She sounded unusually serious. That conversation changed everything. The next day, I drove to my parents' house after work. The moment I walked in, something felt off. Dad was already at the dining table. Mom was by the kitchen counter. And then there was Tyler, Emily's boyfriend. I paused in the doorway. Hey, I said slowly. Tyler waved, looking far too comfortable, like he was on a family vacation. I peered around him. Where's Emily? Oh, she's out with friends, my mom said quickly. Oddity number 2. Why wasn't my maid of honor at a wedding discussion? My mom gestured to the table before I could ask. Sit down. We wanted to talk about something. I sat slowly. Tyler looked excited. My dad cleared his throat. So, this is actually Tyler's idea. Tyler leaned forward, beaming. Yes, I've been thinking about proposing to Emily. I nodded. Okay, good for him. They'd been together almost 3 years. It was expected. He continued, and I thought your wedding might be the perfect place. I blinked. Sorry, what? His expression was dead serious. Like, during the reception, he said. The night could become a wedding and engagement party. My mind froze. Then I actually started laughing. A genuinely impolite, surprised laugh. You're kidding, I gasped. No one else was laughing. My mom folded her hands on the table. Anna, let him finish. I stopped laughing. Are you serious? Tyler nodded enthusiastically. There's this trend online, my mom interjected, where bridesmaids and maids of honor get proposed to at weddings. There are so many videos on Instagram. It's very pretty. I looked at her. No, Mom. Her face instantly clouded. You mean no? I mean no, I said, still half laughing at the sheer absurdity. That's insane. Tyler looked offended. Why? It's my wedding, I said, shrugging. Yeah, but it would improve the night for you, he insisted. My mom grew stern. She used that tone. Anna, she chastised, don't be selfish. Maybe I misheard her. I'm sorry. Your sister has been through so much, she said. Would sharing the spotlight really hurt you? And there it was. That familiar feeling. The old script. Emily had cancer. Emily deserved more. It all started and ended with Emily. I leaned back in my seat. So, this entire meeting, I said slowly, was to ask if my sister's boyfriend can hijack my wedding? Tyler scoffed. That's not hijacking. That is literally hijacking, I shot back. My father spoke again, his voice weak. Anna, we wanted to surprise you for Emily. Yes, my mom chimed in. I shook my head. No. Just no. No explanation. New date. Just no. The room went quiet. Mom's face changed completely. From hopeful to furious. Anna, do you realize how ungrateful you sound? I stared at her. Ungrateful, she snapped. We are paying for your entire wedding. Can't you do this one thing for your sister? My chest broke open. Because suddenly, everything made sense. The endless guest list. The sudden thrill she felt about paying. I watched her, my voice low. I always thought it was weird how eager you were to pay for my wedding. She remained silent. Now I know why. Her eyes widened. Are you accusing me? I'm accusing you of planning my wedding around Emily, I said. Tears welled in her eyes. Massive, dramatic tears. I cannot believe my daughter is saying this to me. Dad finally stood up. That's enough, Anna. But I couldn't stop. You want my wedding to be about Emily again? I cried. My mom pointed to the door. If you're going to act like this, she sobbed, you can leave. The meeting was over. I grabbed my bag. Tyler, as I stood, shook his head and muttered, You're being really bitter about this. I didn't say a word. I just left. I thought that argument was absurd. I had no idea it would get worse. Halfway down the driveway, my phone buzzed. I thought it was Daniel, asking how the meeting went. It wasn't. It was my mother. I answered in the car. Hello. Her voice sounded calmer, but forced. Anna, she said, we need to discuss what just happened. I believe we did, I replied, my voice tight. She snapped. No. You stormed out. I closed my eyes. Mom, you asked Tyler to propose to Emily at my wedding. I declined. Yes, she replied, and you overreacted. I inhaled slowly. Overreacted? A simple request, she said, and you turned it into a personal attack. A simple request? I laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. Yes, she insisted. You disappoint me. As usual, my chest tightened. Mom, I'm uncomfortable with this, I said. That should matter. A brief pause on the line. Then she said the sentence that truly changed everything. Well, you may not be comfortable, but your father and I have invested heavily in this wedding. I straightened up in my seat. What does that mean? It means, she said, her voice growing colder, that we're not canceling the idea over one moment of jealousy. Jealousy? Again? I gripped the phone harder. I'm not jealous. You accused us of favoritism before Tyler even said a word, she shot back. What else would you call it? I stayed silent. Then she dropped the bombshell. Anna, we're paying for the wedding. My stomach sank. And, she continued, since we are paying, we can make certain requests. Requests, her word, not demands. My hands started to shake. So, you're telling me, I whispered, that the proposal is happening whether I like it or not? Another pause. Then, my mother said calmly yes. A few seconds passed in silence. Streetcars went by. A dog barked down the block. My own mother just told me my opinion didn't matter at my own wedding. Finally, I whispered, you're serious? Yes, she said. When the day comes, you'll realize it's not a big deal. My voice was a block of ice. It matters to me. You need to let go of this resentment you've always had toward Emily, she said. The end. That sentence truly ended the conversation. I'm hanging up now, I said. Anna, I hung up. I stared at the steering wheel, numb, before driving home. The line kept repeating in my head, since we pay. My wedding had been stolen. Daniel was on the couch when I arrived. He looked up immediately. Well, I dropped my bag and sat beside him. They mean it about the proposal. They do. Yes, I said. And my mom told me it's happening anyway because they paid for the wedding. Daniel leaned back slowly, his eyes wide. You're kidding. Wish I was. He ran a hand through his hair. That's insane. I just nodded. We sat in silence for a moment. My phone buzzed. I picked it up. New message from Mom. You are not to tell Emily about this conversation. Another message followed seconds later. This is supposed to be a surprise. Then another alert. Tyler. I opened it. Hey, I know that conversation got heated, but you really need to keep this between us. A second message. If Emily finds out before the wedding, it will completely ruin everything. My jaw tensed. Daniel, watching my face, asked, what is it? I handed him the phone. He read the messages, his eyebrows raising. They're warning you. Another message came in. Look, I know you're upset, but please don't sabotage this. Sabotage? Apparently, I was the one ruining something. Daniel looked at me. Don't respond. No, I said, I'm not even blocking him. Not tonight. Instead, I placed the phone face down on the table. That night, Daniel and I realized something. This dispute went beyond a disagreement. My family had organized my wedding, and they fully expected my consent, my participation. We stayed up late, not arguing, but considering our options. Daniel took the wedding folder, flipping through the contracts my mom had been sending me for weeks. Venue, catering, decor deposits, photography deposits. Page after page. After 10 minutes, he exhaled slowly. This is bad. I looked up from my laptop. How bad? He pointed to a paragraph on the screen. Most deposits are non-refundable. I leaned forward. We're talking how much? Daniel pulled up some emails. Your parents have paid about $30,000. I blinked. $30,000? I leaned back in my chair. That clarified everything. The proposal was happening just 3 weeks before the wedding. Close enough to make canceling everything incredibly difficult. Daniel looked at me. You know what this means, right? I nodded slowly. They waited until everything was paid. Exactly, he said, rubbing his forehead. They set it up to trap you. I had avoided believing that, but the more I thought about it, the more it fit. Mom was thrilled to pay. She advanced the timeline. She rushed deposits. And suddenly, this proposal appeared when backing out would cost a fortune. I looked at the contracts again. If we canceled now, they'd lose all that money. Yeah, I said, and they'll blame me. Probably both of us. We sat quietly. Finally, Daniel said something that both tightened my chest and offered a lifeline. Anna, if this were my family, I'd leave. I looked at him. You mean cancel the wedding? I mean, he said, I'd refuse to let them control it. I didn't respond immediately. It felt bigger than just canceling. That would never make my parents happy. Part of me still hoped my mom would calm down, reconsider. Unfortunately, the next day proved that hope was useless. My phone rang again at lunch. Mom. I hesitated before answering. Hello. Her tone was cheerful, almost like our argument never happened. Hi, sweetheart. I've been thinking about how to make the proposal beautiful. I closed my eyes. You're still discussing this? Yes, she said casually. I thought we settled this. We did, she replied. You said it was happening anyway, I said flatly. Yes, she agreed. Then she continued, as if we were discussing seating arrangements. So, here's my thought. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Mom. She ignored me. You give a speech during the reception. Something about your bond with Emily. You say tonight is about both of you. My stomach sank. Both of us. Yes, she said warmly. You getting married and Emily starting her future. I felt my hands shaking again. You want me to stand up at my wedding and introduce my sister's proposal? I asked slowly. Well, if you say it that way, that's exactly what it is, she sighed, impatient with my intransigence. This should be a happy moment, Anna. It should be my happy moment, I choked out. You are getting married, she said, her voice rising. That part isn't changing. There was a long silence. Softly, I said, Mom, please stop. Silence again. I'm begging you, I said. Don't make my wedding Emily's engagement party. Her voice cooled. You're being dramatic. No, I said. Please respect this one boundary. And I'm asking you to stop acting like this is some huge betrayal, she snapped. It feels like one. Jealousy is ruining your wedding, she declared. There it was again. Jealousy. I pushed back. That word reset everything. Mom, I said, trying to stay calm. This has nothing to do with jealousy. It does. It doesn't. You always hated Emily. I inhaled deeply. I am not discussing my childhood right now. She snapped. Well, maybe you should. The conversation was escalating again. One last try. Mom, please. Just please. I wondered if she would soften. She didn't. She said something that sealed the door. The proposal is happening, Anna, with or without you. The words lingered in the air. A strange calm came over me. You mean that? Yes, she said. We are not canceling. And you expect me to participate? It would be better if you did, she said. But it's happening anyway. That was when I realized something simple. My mom had made her decision. My opinion no longer mattered. For the first time, I considered giving up. That phone call with my mother made me stop trying to talk this out like normal people. Until then, I thought if I explained it calmly, she might see how unfair it was. She didn't want to talk. She wanted compliance. That night, Daniel and I sat at our kitchen table again, the same place we'd planned our small wedding. But the mood was different. I told him everything my mom said, especially the end. The proposal is happening with or without you. Daniel slowly leaned back. So, she decided. Yeah. And she expects me to introduce it, apparently. We sat in silence for a while. Then Daniel broke it with a simple statement. Don't be there. I looked up. What? If the wedding isn't yours anymore, he said, don't show up. I blinked. That's not possible. Why not? It's my wedding. I cried. He shook his head. But is it? That question hit harder than expected because deep down I knew the answer. Daniel leaned forward. Anna, we loved the idea of getting married at my grandparents' house. I know. We can still do that. I watched him, my heart racing. You mean cancel the big wedding? No, he said calmly. I mean, move our wedding. A moment passed before my brain caught up. Move it? Yeah, he said. Earlier. How early? I asked. He thought for a moment. A week. A week. It keeps our honeymoon bookings working. Sitting there, I processed it. It made more sense the more I thought about it. Our honeymoon was scheduled for the day after the original wedding date. By moving our wedding earlier, we could still leave on time. My parents would still have their big event on the original date. Daniel carefully watched my face. What do you think? I inhaled slowly. I think that could actually work. We called his grandparents that night. Daniel's grandmother, Margaret, answered. Hello, sweetheart. Hi, Grandma, Daniel said. We have to ask you something slightly crazy. She chuckled. Oh, I love crazy. Daniel explained our plan, the proposal, my mother's demands, moving the wedding. A brief pause on the phone. Then I heard the most comforting sentence all week from his grandmother. Well, you can marry here, dear. His grandfather, George, called out from the background, tell him. We'll reposition the chairs. My eyes started to sting. Are you sure? I asked, my voice shaky. Of course we're sure, she said. This was your wedding plan anyway. After hanging up, Daniel and I looked at each other. So, we're doing this? He asked. Yeah, I said. But before we could finalize anything, I needed to talk to one person first. Emily. Not because I owed her, but because the situation was about to explode either way. If I didn't say anything, she'd learn the proposal plan at the wedding itself. Telling her would ruin Tyler's surprise. But honestly, after everything that had happened, I no longer felt responsible for Tyler's big moment. The next afternoon, I called her. Hey, she said when she picked up. What's up? I inhaled. I need to tell you about the wedding. A brief pause. What about it? Your boyfriend is going to propose to you there. Silence. Then what? At the reception, I said. My parents know. Another pause. Then she groaned loudly. Oh my God. You didn't know? No, she said. Tyler said he was planning something, but I didn't know what. I waited for her response, expecting maybe a flicker of doubt, or at least a check to see if I was okay with it. Instead, she said something different. You ruined the surprise. I blinked. What? You could have kept that to yourself, she said, annoyed. My stomach sank. Emily, I said, they expected me to introduce your proposal during my wedding speech. So my wedding. She sighed loudly. Anna, you're overdoing it. I stared at the phone. You're serious? It's just a proposal, she said. Your wedding still happens. That sentence sounded suspiciously like my mom's argument. You don't mind? I asked. Honestly, she said, no. Of course she wouldn't. Because she thought sharing my wedding day was perfectly fine, as long as she got engaged. I just think you could have gone with the flow, she said. I stopped arguing. Okay, I said quietly. I just stared at my phone after we hung up. Daniel came into the room. How'd it go? I laughed, a real laugh this time, but a bitter one. She's mad I ruined the surprise. He blinked. That's her priority? Yep. Daniel shook his head slowly. Well, that answers that. After that, the plan was official. We moved our wedding. And we had to do it quietly. Over the next few days, we contacted our loved ones, our closest friends, 2 cousins, my favorite aunt. Every conversation started similarly. So, something weird happened with the wedding. Then we explained. Everyone reacted the same way. What? They wanted a proposal at your wedding. That's insane. Yeah. Then we'd ask the real question. Can you come a week early? Some had to switch flights. Some took extra vacation days. Some rearranged their work schedules. I appreciated their willingness more than any fancy venue. We requested one major favor from everyone. No social media. No posts, no live streams, no clues. At least not until Daniel and I were on our honeymoon. Everyone agreed. Suddenly, the quietest wedding preparation ever began. While my parents were busy planning their big event, our real wedding was being meticulously, lovingly planned by Daniel and me. The week before the new wedding date was surreal. My parents were completely unaware of the change. My mom kept texting me about the original wedding schedule like nothing was wrong. Things like, "We need to finalize your speech. Remember to practice the timing for the surprise moment." My stomach would tighten whenever her name popped up on my phone. I stopped responding to most of them. Daniel and I just lived in the moment, focused on our wedding, the one we always wanted. The morning of our ceremony was quiet. No big venue. No vendors rushing around. Number 200-person seating charts. Just Daniel's grandparents' lakeside home, the very spot where he proposed. His grandmother, Margaret, was arranging flowers in mason jars in the backyard when we arrived that morning. His grandfather, George, was dragging folding chairs across the grass. "Morning," he called out when he saw us. "Morning," Daniel replied, offering to help. I stood still for a moment, taking it all in. The water behind the house was perfectly still. The oak trees cast huge shadows on the lawn. For the first time since this whole mess began, I felt completely calm. My friend Rachel hugged me. "You ready?" she asked. I grinned. Yeah, about 20 people attended. Our closest pals. My favorite aunt. Daniel's immediate family. So many of them had worked hard to be there. One friend had arrived 2 days early, taking extra vacation. Another rescheduled a work conference. No large reception hall could compare to the quiet devotion of their presence. The ceremony was simple, full of music and without drama, no grand entrances. Daniel was waiting under the oak tree when I arrived. His face lit up when he saw me. That alone made it all worthwhile. Our friend Mark officiated. He kept it brief. He even joked, "Well, this might be the most discreet wedding I've ever officiated." Everyone laughed. Daniel squeezed my hand. When it was time for his vows, he looked at me and promised, "So, whatever chaos your family creates, we'll handle it together." Some quiet laughter. "And I promise to make you laugh more than they stress you out." That made me genuinely laugh. "Your turn," he whispered. "Thank you for reminding me," I said, my voice thick, "that this day is actually supposed to be about us." Just like that, we were married. No drama. Nobody interrupted. No surprising proposals. Just us. A small backyard dinner followed. Wine. Grilling, homemade desserts. Daniel's grandmother snuck extra cake onto everyone's plates. His grandfather raised his glass. "Best wedding I've ever attended." Everyone applauded. And honestly, I wholeheartedly agreed. Our plan wasn't complete yet. The second half started the next morning. The day after our wedding was always our honeymoon, so we left the morning after our secret one. "How do you feel?" Daniel asked at the airport. "Relieved," I said, a wave of it washing over me. Once we boarded the plane, I completely let go. Our guests had kept their promise. None of them posted online. No photos, no live streams, nothing. To the world, my wedding was still to come. My parents were preparing for their big day. Tyler was getting ready to propose. Emily thought Daniel and I were flying across the ocean after the big event. When anyone saw us, they assumed Italy was our honeymoon. 12 hours later, Daniel and I reached Italy. We arrived at our hotel on Lake Como, exhausted but in awe. His parents had secretly upgraded our honeymoon to a 5-star hotel as a wedding gift. As we entered, the windows framed an incredible view: mountains, water, slow-moving boats. For hours, I forgot everything. We unpacked, ordered room service, walked the waterfront. Daniel joked, "You are legally not allowed to think about your family until after gelato." I tried my best to follow. Eventually, though, curiosity got the better of me. That night, while Daniel was in the shower, I picked up my phone. Social media was the last thing I'd checked before our wedding. After opening it, I immediately understood why everyone told me to enjoy the honeymoon first. My alerts exploded. Message tags, mentions. I opened Facebook. My mom's long post was at the top of my feed. She had written an entire essay. It began, "After everything we've done for our daughter, she has chosen to humiliate our family and disrespect the people who love her." My stomach sank. The post went on, paragraph after paragraph. She detailed how my father and she had spent most of their savings on my wedding, how Daniel and I had abandoned the event, costing them thousands. She concluded, We expected gratitude. Instead, we received betrayal. Photos accompanied the post, photos of the venue, photos of the decorations, photos of the invitations. The share count already showed over 200. The comments were harsh. Relatives I hadn't spoken to in years were now suddenly experts on my life. How could you do this to your parents? They sacrificed everything for you. You should be ashamed. My chest tightened. A new post appeared. Emily's. Though brief, her post was worse. So tired of jealous people and haters trying to ruin happy moments. Below it was a smiling photo of her with Tyler, captioned, "Grateful for the people who actually support us." Daniel came out of the bathroom and saw my face. What happened? I handed him the phone. He read the posts quietly. A sigh. That escalated quickly. I nodded. They say I abandoned my wedding. No mention of the proposal plan, I assume, he asked. No way. Another alert. Tyler had replied to Mom's post. Some people are just too bitter to be happy for others. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Bitter. I locked the phone and set it on the table. I knew they'd be mad, I said, but I didn't expect a public war. Daniel sat beside me. You don't have to reply. I won't, I said. And honestly, I meant it. I checked social media again 2 days later. I wanted the original wedding day story. Saturday was still the date. My parents had paid for everything. The venue, the catering, the decor, $30,000. It appeared they wouldn't let it go to waste. The answer was right there on Instagram when I opened it. Photos. Lots of images. Emily, glowing, in the beautifully decorated reception hall. Tyler on one knee. My emotional mom embracing them both. My sister's caption, "The most magical night of my life. So grateful to be surrounded by the people who truly matter." A new line followed. Haters couldn't ruin this moment. Daniel peered over me. Seems they followed through. Yeah. However, something else became clear. There were far fewer people in the room than expected. The guest count looked closer to 100, and several large tables were conspicuously empty in the photos. I browsed through tags and guest photos. I estimated only 30 to 40% of the invited guests actually attended. After the bride mysteriously disappeared, many simply stayed home. Daniel smiled slightly. So, the wedding happened, he said. Just not yours. Exactly, I agreed. And honestly, my anger had finally subsided. I was just tired. Because the truth was simple. My parents spent $30,000 to manage my wedding, only to celebrate someone else's engagement. As I watched the Lake Como sunset with my husband from our Italian balcony, for the first time in years, I finally felt finished with them. Call to action. So, that's my story. It was a wild, infuriating, and ultimately incredibly liberating experience. I'm genuinely curious. What would you have done in my place? Have you ever had a moment where you realized your family's expectations just totally overshadowed your own? Let me know in the comments below. I'm really keen to hear your thoughts and experiences.